Ash, welcome back to the Razor's Edge.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. It's the last time we spoke was at Bloodstock, just before your set. So to start things off, how was Bloodstock for you? How do you feel your set went?
I thought it was good. I got to be honest, the addition of having fire just completely made my day, if I'm honest. I never realized how easy it was to get fire. It's literally just an email.
Yeah.
So if anyone ever wants to know, you can get fire by emailing people these days. It's awesome. You don't have to burn bus stops down anymore.
I was going to ask you. You did bring a lot of pyro that day. So is that a staple of the Venom Prison set going forward?
It was more of a mindset, to be honest. A bit of a weird mindset, to be honest, because obviously with everything that's been going on the last couple of years and stuff, we had this show coming up, and to be honest, my mindset for it was like this, like it's so unpredictable. This could be the last show again for ages again if it carries on the way it was. And I remember just saying to the guys, I was like, it's a main stage time and stuff, and I was kind of like, let's just go all out with it, because there's a possibility that we could just go into lockdowns again and there's no shows again for ages. And I remember saying to the guys, I was like, let's just get some fire on stage. Let's just get a load of guitar cabs. Let's just I asked for like 6 guitar cabs on each side and stuff, and fire and all that. And I was like, it'll be something to look back on with videos and photos if we do go into like this other lockdown and there's no shows. So I kind of thought of it like that more than anything. But then moving forward, like you're asking, I would say that this will start to be a part of what's going on.
Excellent. It was spectacular on the day, I thought. So
it was really hot. Believe it or not, fire's hot. But the moment it's that close to you, you're like, my Lord, it is hot. Yeah. Every time it was going off, I'd have to just take a step back, and I was like, shit.
Excellent. So looking forward then, we're here to talk about your new album, really. So you released your 3rd album, Erebos, at the start of February. So let's start off with, how soon after Samsara did you start looking at that next album?
There was a bit of plotting and planning, because Primeval was something that was we always kind of wanted to bring that into the picture even before Samsara.
Yeah.
So we knew that we weren't going to be releasing a brand new record that soon after as such. So it was a perfect time to do this compilation. But the 2 new songs on Primeval were part of the Erebos writing pool to kind of ease people into the idea of us trying some new things. So to be fair, you kind of, as soon as you leave the studio, you just start thinking about things already. And there's always so much stuff that when you were writing an album, that you have so much left over and all ideas are still always floating. So I think we started writing, I want to say late 2019.
Yeah.
Possibly late 2019. It really started 2020, the writing for Erebos, I'd say, properly, to solidify it and stuff.
Yeah. And this album, the sound on this album, shows a bit of quite a big progression from Samsara, I think. I've listened to it a couple of times over the weekend now, the new album, and it's got an almost epic feel to it. I think that 1 minute 41 seconds of Born from Chaos at the start, it sets the scene. It's huge, and it also almost feels cinematic.
Yeah, that's kind of definitely an approach that we were going for. I'm glad you said cinematic, because that was something me and Ben were always saying, we love the idea of soundscape and the cinematic feel of it. So I'm glad you said that. Excellent.
So when you and Ben were writing the riffs that start to form the new album, what's your mindset like? Do you approach it any differently from Samsara?
Yeah. So I've always had this firm belief with Venom Prison that we're not going to write the same record twice. I feel like Animus has its kind of more grindcore, death metal feeling, where I feel Samsara is more of that brutal technical death metal. And then kind of when we got to Erebos, it's almost like, I was explaining it before to someone, that you have to forget everything that you've done before, because realistically, the way you write and, you know, the way you kind of play, you're always going to have that sound in that style of playing or that style of writing or the way you do things. But we wanted to kind of enter a lot of different things into this album, and it was more reflection. And I think reflection's kind of what helped Erebos, because we would talk about how we were going to approach it and what we were going to do with it. And it was more, I remember the first conversation about like Erebos as a whole was, it needs to be catchier, more structured. And we wanted to just make sure that there were songs, like we weren't thinking of a live setting or anything. We were just thinking of songs on a record, and to the point where almost any song could have been a single as such. And I think that was kind of the, you know, the mindset we went in to Erebos with, was we just want to write big songs, and kind of see how it transposed with, you know, that Venom Prison root and style to it.
So you say what do you mean by a big song? Are you talking the sounds, the huge sound that you have achieved, or massive long songs, or
a bit of everything, really. Like I say, reflection was such a big part of it, because there were things that I was thinking about a lot with, you know, vocals and song structures. And when we were going through the writing process and we were going through all the pre-production and demos, I would always have the conversation with Larissa where it would be like, hey, if you've got a killer hook going and you need more bars, you just tell me, I'll extend that section double. You know, like we need to like let those vocals shine through and have a chance to like build hooks and themes. And it was even to the point where putting the vocals onto some of the pre-production, there would be sections where like Larissa would get like a really killer hook, and it would almost just completely change, you know, my mind on the structure of a song. And I'd be like, oh, that's actually a chorus that can come back. Like, and it was like very in the way of just thinking, you know, not so much like every song's verse, chorus, chorus type thing, but it's almost like the way we were thinking more, just to make sure that, you know, it was a chance for Venom Prison to kind of iron out itself as such.
Yeah. And obviously COVID has given you more time to focus on this album than you'd normally have when you're going through a touring cycle. Do you feel that's helped with the new album?
Massively. It's always been the case of, you know, write, record, tour, and there's no reflection period and there's no real time, if you know what I mean. Like, you're kind of trying to write a record in 4 months, which, I mean, it's doable, it's completely doable, but Erebos had the chance of, you know, getting a folder full of 22 songs of demoing and kind of going, no, that doesn't work, and then kind of figuring out what the theme of the album will be instead of forcing the theme. And I think that's kind of how time, and, you know, as weird as it sounds, the pandemic was kind of, it had its silver lining with that time for creativity. So yeah, it definitely helped.
Excellent. So for a lot of bands in their careers, the third studio album is almost a defining point. The album announces the band as like a real contender. You think of Slayer's Rain in Blood or Metallica's Master of Puppets as that 2 examples of that. So do you think after 2 albums that have established Venom Prison on the scene, that Erebos is now that work that will drive you forward to like world domination, if you like?
I'd like to think so. It's always so unpredictable, isn't it? Like, for me, it was just, I kind of thought in my head, like, it wasn't so much about the outside perspective. It was more like, guys, how do we make ourselves better? Like, what do we do to grow ourselves so we continue writing and progressing record after record? But we also did having to, you know, take into consideration that it was album 3. And it was like, right, that's the one that everyone goes, ooh, tread carefully, it's album 3. So I think there was a bit of that going on, but I think it was just so much reflection and so much thought process that went into Erebos, even more so than just the writing on its own. And I think that's kind of the way we did it. But I think, I could definitely agree, it's the strongest record to date.
Yeah.
which is the most cliche thing to say, I know, but it really is like I think when people finally get to sit down with this record,
yeah,
and they've followed Venom Prison, record after record, I think for the listeners and people who have followed us, I think they'll safely say, oh wow, this is the point where Venom Prison actually wanted to level up as such.
That's exactly what it sounds like to me. I've only listened through it twice, I think, now, but it's from your previous albums. It's absolutely, it's a massive step forwards.
Cool. I'm really glad. Like it is so much. I was thinking in my head, like, oh, is this going to be so different from anything we've ever done before? But I feel like it doesn't actually sound any different than anything we've done before. I just feel like it's just more structured and there's more foundations going on in the album as a whole. And it's definitely my favorite piece, to date so far, I would say.
Yeah, and you've gone back to Ilan Cantor for the artwork again. How important to you is the overall package of an album, not just the music, but the artwork, the visuals, everything that goes with it?
It's so important. I truly believe that, building an aesthetic for a band is so important, building an image, and not so much like images in, everyone's personal identities, but more the fact that I was kind of saying to Larissa, like, whilst we were doing the artwork for Erebos and stuff, and I feel like Eleran's got us to this point now where you could just remove that Venom Prison logo and you would say that's a Venom Prison record. I feel like Eleran's managed to kind of lock into this band and understand the band's aesthetics and kind of like build it and grow it album to album. And I think it is so important.
Yeah. And I think the artwork for this album is very distinctively Eleran, but it's also very distinctly Venom Prison as well. So you can tell who the artist is, but you know the band as well, don't you?
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of working with Eleran. Like he fully, I think like when we like even got to write in the record and we had to start talking about artwork, I don't think it was even a discussion, if I'm honest. I think it was more just who's emailing Eleran. Pretty much, I think that was pretty much as far as it went.
Yeah. So how does it work with him? Do you give him any direction? What you're looking for a piece of art?
So he'll normally take pre-productions and lyrics, and he then just has a couple weeks with the lyrics and the music, and he just kind of dissects it and picks out like almost like an overall theme, because normally in the lyrics there is an overall theme, like where you have Animus, which was hate. Generally the record, every song had the theme of hate, and then you had Samsara, the rebirth, and it was kind of like all following that. And I think when you've kind of found this whole like more, it's a very isolated like piece of artwork. When you see it, it feels very isolated. And I feel like that's kind of how Erebos sounds as a whole, and lyrically in the context. It's like very isolated, and it does capture it perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is your first album for Century Media. So what's it like working for them as opposed to Prosthetic, as you've worked with in the past?
I just think it's a bigger label, it's a bigger team. There's so much more in the background as such. There's like, for this record, like I've never seen so many emails in my life. There's so many people doing different things, and it's really good. It's honestly, I haven't had a bad word to say since we've kind of gone to Century. It's been so like seamless. Everyone's like kind of got a real good input on things, or ideas are floating. So it's just a bigger team.
Yeah. And when you were looking to switch labels, was it always Century Media? Did anyone else sort of bid for you? Was there any kind of war over Venom Prison?
There was a bit, yeah. There was. I shouldn't say too much on that, but yeah, there was. But I think ultimately, money aside, I think for me it was kind of knowing that the people who were going to be, in charge of this record were going to really understand the band and really understand the direction and the look, and kind of like the feeling that this band was going for. And when we were, I can't remember when it was, but LA, Mike Gitter, we were having like chats with him and stuff, and it wasn't even about Venom Prison. It was just he come to the show and hanging out, and he just fully understood us as people. We clicked really quickly, and I feel like he knew us on a personal level and not just the band. And sometimes I feel like that can go a lot further than just someone going, oh, I'm going to chuck this at you, or I'm going to chuck that at you. They're a bunch of people who like fully understand the intentions of Venom Prison and kind of the way Venom Prison wants to be. And I think that is a really important move for bands. I think sometimes people want to just jump at anything and just go, oh, wow, like this. But it really is about who's going to be around you. And I think when we thought about it, Century was like exactly what we wanted. They were perfect.
Yeah. So in terms of an album cycle, we expect you to be hitting the road right now. Obviously, COVID's played its part in that. Larissa's baby's due in about 9 weeks, isn't it? So when can we expect Venom Prison to hit the road?
We've got festivals this year. We are doing our festivals this year. I think the way we kind of looked at it is it's so unpredictable with the climate at the moment. And I feel like instead of twiddling our thumbs, I kind of said to the guys, like, hey, we can sit on our asses and complain about it for as long as we want, or we can find a way to adapt to this.
Yeah.
And as much as, I hate the fact that, I'm not the biggest internet person or the biggest social media guy, but I've been pushing Venom Prison in that way.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes if someone said it to me and it wasn't even about music or band stuff, but it really like sat with me, and he was saying sometimes it's just about being present, and like everyone's in the same situation, everyone's in the same boat, whether you're in a band or not. And the only thing bands and fans, like, they're just an interactive collaboration, isn't it? Like, a band performs, people watch, vice versa, then the people will take the music, buy merch and all that. Without that live setting, the only thing that can really keep us bonded and present is the internet. And I felt like it was really important for Venom Prison to kind of just start moving forward into that way and kind of going, do you know what, like, we've been quite mysterious over the years, we've been quite cryptic. Maybe now it's time to kind of leak a bit of personality in, so people feel like we haven't just disappeared. So we've been really, really busy just like building just barrels of content. If I'm honest, like we've been building content for the last like 4 months or something. We've got so much stuff edited and ready to be edited that's going to last us almost 6-7 months. It's it's honestly relentless. But at the same time, at least I know we have that there backed up for us ready. If there's no live shows, at least people can still get a feel for the band and still see what the band is up to, regardless of that live atmosphere or not.
And you talk about content, and I wanted to touch on the Venom Prison podcast. It's started through lockdown, a bit sporadic at times, I think. It's
always sporadic. Always sporadic.
So you've recently had Merle from Metal Hammer on, and Elan too. I've not seen that episode yet, but I need to watch that one. So at Bloodstock, you told me you had a few more in the bag. So are you just waiting for the right time to release new episodes now?
I just finished editing one last week. I think at the moment we're kind of, I like it being sporadic at the moment, with the fact it's kind of, we're just touching with like either people we've worked with or people we've toured with, and just kind of like keeping it going. So there's still a few more that are ready to be released and pushed out there. But me and Larissa had this discussion a couple of weeks ago. We were saying, was this just a lockdown idea, or do you think people really like the idea? And I kind of said, like, even if it wasn't for people liking it as such, it's good for us to kind of still have that connection with people we've been around or worked with and stuff. And it's opening the band up to a bit more personality. I think people are starting to connect with the band a bit more. when they start to see that we're opening up a little bit more. And I feel like that podcast is like a real big one that, you know, kind of opens a bit of personality.
Absolutely.
You know, like, we never smile in photos. We've never smiled anywhere. And then everyone's just like, I remember like 2-3 years ago, people used to just comment on our like Facebook or Instagram being like, please smile. And I'm like, I don't do that. I don't do that. Don't tell me to smile. I don't smile. But that's not the truth. It's just because I'm not in the right setting. I wouldn't, you know, where the podcast allows me to be in that setting, you know?
Yeah. And it gives almost especially with the first 3 where it was just you lot talking, it gives you almost a behind the scenes sort of feel, which is very popular these days. People like to see the other side of things that they peek behind the curtain, if you like, don't they? So
yeah, I think people think these things just appear, and it's kind of like funny to think that they think it just appears when you go, there's so much work that happens and there's so many funny things that happen along the way, but it never gets told, you know? It's normally like when someone's about 70 years old and in a big rock band from like the 60s and like, I'm going to write a book now, and it's in Tesco's and no one gives a fuck. So I might as well tell the stories now whilst I'm not 70 and it's still a bit fresh.
Absolutely. So to close off, you're a big Newport County fan. Obviously, I support the better club with Cardiff City. So
fucking hell.
We did this at Bloodstock as well, didn't we? So to be fair, things seem to be going well for you this season. Currently in a playoff spot. Do you think that you can get promotion this year?
That's a really difficult question, isn't it? Really, anything can happen. Have you seen our track history? But no, I do hope all the best. Like, fucking Thingy left not long ago, didn't he? I read like an interview of like what he said, and I was like crying with laughter. It was something about like, oh, these players can't be asked to play, so I'm going. And he was like, well, fair enough then. But no, I hope so. I do hope so. But I have to confess that my Premier League enthusiasm has been coming back a bit over the last couple of years. I used to be like a diehard Liverpool fan when I was a kid, and all my family are. And I don't know what's happened, but in the last few years, I've just been going Prem a little bit, and I'm like, oh, what's happening to me? I'm selling out again.
Well, we can't have that, can we? So
no, Newport County till I die, if they're listening.
Well, I hope you do get promotion, and eventually you're one day big enough to give us a proper South Wales derby.
Yeah, well, who knows? It's so unpredictable, isn't it? But who knows?
Well, Ash, it's been a pleasure talking to you again. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me as well.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.